Hello, we're the Infamy Fantasy Sports team, and we are hosting fantasy sports competitions at infamy.gg. So check that out. Today we're talking about the pressures of being a esports athlete in a single individual competition versus playing as part of a team, and kind of which end is better, which is more impressive, and just the different pressures of both. So we'll start off talking about the pros and cons of being an individual esport athlete, such as like a fighting game, card game, or sports games. And I feel like the big thing is it's real all or nothing when it's just you. It's like if you win the championship, it's like, oh man, that guy, he gets all the glory. But if you suck for like an extended period of time, you get all the hate as well. There's really nothing else to reflect upon other than your own skill.
Yeah, and just expanding on that, I completely agree that it's one of the biggest advantages is that when you're playing by yourself, you don't have anyone to blame, and it's all on you, so you don't have to deal with those uncontrollable factors like teammates messing up. But it does come with the implication of a lot of people who are very good at individualistic and solo play. They don't necessarily transfer well into team settings and like team communication and being able to interact with other people in a
You
game
are
is completely
eliminating a
different.
lot of factors. There's a
Yeah.
lot of like other things like you don't need to be social. You could be just a fucking game bot, and it
Hmm.
won't really affect your team or your esports performance. You just need to grind it out.
Yeah, and I do think that being better in a solo kind of game also leads more towards the building up of yourself individualistically, if that makes any sense. So like,
Yeah, I don't know if you're
yeah,
gonna be able to build it. Some kids are just not built to build their brand on their own. Like it depends on your preferred game, right?
but it
Like
gives you that blanket of not having to have a personality. Just like your personality becomes, oh well, this kid's the best, so you don't necessarily have to shine in a team setting and like stand out above your
well, I
You
mean,
just come up, you just
But
show up and play.
yeah. And
yeah, I mean like that too. But you're not gonna be able to monetize yourself well. Like the problem I see with like
I
solo
mean,
play
there's like
is you
Shroud,
don't have an
who's like
organization
the
or anything behind you. Like you might be the high level player. Like let's say you're not the best. Let's say you're fucking like number three, right?
Hmm.
Mhm.
In those games, your upside is way less than being like third in the world, best team in the world, right?
You asked me, so you're saying that
Like okay, so like we're talking about like let's say let's even talk about like FIFA or like any kind of sports game, right? The
mhm,
best FIFA player is going to be a lot more valuable than the third best FIFA player, right? But if you
yeah.
look at like teams, like in an organization, right? The third best team might be even more valuable depending on branding. So like I think that it's hard for like an individual player to really monetize themselves in this climate where like you have such high levels of examples of professionalism. If you're not doing anything other than your esport, you're not really making any money.
well, I think there is an advantage to it though, as well as you're solely responsible for your brand. You don't really need to reflect on a team, or if you're not with an org, it's really just you're free to do whatever you want and kind of speak, and it only reflects on your reputation as a player. Where if you're
Mhm.
part of a team, it's like you have the weight of everyone else that you're representing, and like kind of like what we talked about in the trash talk episode. It's like you can talk as much trash as you want as a solo player, but if you do it and all the weight is on your shoulders, but if you do it as a part of a team, then it's like, okay, then now you're putting bonus pressure on your team to have to perform to
Mhm.
meet the expectations set by your decision. So it's really all, and even with the brand, it's all just kind of it's your path to how you represent yourself and
Yeah.
nobody else.
And I don't necessarily think that's true, like that. Like you can't just build a brand off of being good at games. There's people like Shroud who are not the most eclectic when it comes to communication, but he pulls a whole bunch of viewers and has a whole bunch of people watching him just because he's just known to be that good at games,
Hmm.
and that's its
He's
own.
an a mod.
Yeah,
That's
but
like
like, but that's what I'm saying.
what's
Like
awesome
anyone
in
who's
the
the best.
community is that like that kid is a freak of nature, and like they like to watch this kid like his skills transfer so well over to a lot of different games. So it's interesting to see like that kind. Like he has a niche that he fills, right? But I'm just
Mhm.
talking about like if these kids are not willing to build their brand and put in that extra work, they're not really going to be getting the value that say an organization that has a team of people that will
Mhm.
build your brand. Like no one's going to buy like you can be on the bench and people are still going to buy your jersey, right? Like it doesn't like these kids are not they don't have those benefits. They're going to have to do everything
But
on
if you
their
just
own.
make a YouTube channel that has you doing stuff or playing games and talking things, then
Mm.
you get all the proceeds. It's like, you got to
Yeah.
put in the work to be your
Yeah,
own brand, but
I
you
just
get all the
don't think that
bonuses.
I just don't think it's as simple as just being the best in esports anymore. It's more about what you can do with your brand on top of it, right?
Well,
Because you're going to
Yeah,
fade
well,
it.
I do think there's a lot of unique ways to use it because like people like Shroud, like people are interested in their take on things as like a top level gamer, and they will like want to be like, oh, what do you think of this game, what does it do
Mhm.
right, and
Yeah,
just like have up the news and people.
you become a consultant at a certain point because of your expertise. But
Mhm.
I mean, like
Yeah,
also like to
Shroud says that
Stroud's
he
credit,
has.
he ground that out and he really put in the work to like make himself that ubiquitous in the industry. It's just like do you look like I talk about like like sports games in particular, not only because of the platform, right? Because they're mostly console exclusive, so there's not really the broad appeal of like the internet because everything's controlled by like the consoles, so it's not
Mhm.
at least spreadable. But also like the international audience, right? You don't see a lot of I would say maybe it's just the circles that we follow, but in esports, but like those names are not household names like a lot of other like first person shooter esports. So like, is it branding? Is it because those games are solo queue and there's no really organizations around them to promote them to
Yeah,
make them household?
I think it's because of the infrastructure surrounding them less than themselves. Like
Mhm.
like there's League of Legends tournaments are like these huge organized things, and that elevates your the highlight on the players because they're like wow, or like or Dota, it's like wow, these people are playing for this huge amount of money in this big tournament. But games like Smash are like a bunch of smaller tournaments that only really like you'll maybe get like further reach with the biggest tournament of like Evo or whatever, and the winner of that'll have some reach, but it's kind of only the top name where it's like if you're into the scene, you'll know like the top 10 as they like swap around a lot of the time. And that's where most of the storylines come from if you follow it. But reaching beyond that, it's like you really do kind of have to be the best to be known outside of the circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
And-
like we were saying before too, like do you think that the team games draw bigger prize pools just because of the money and monetary investment? Like the only other like sport like esports that I see that put out money are like EA for like the sports game. So like FIFA and Madden and 2K. Like those leagues they get some money in them too.
but
Not
not
nothing
not on
like
the same scale, not even close.
yeah, but also too like it's all you only have to pay one kid, right? So like that money goes a lot farther. But
But
it's not also too like EA has a lot of different games where like League that's like their main bread and butter until
well,
like Fortnite too. That's their main marketing scheme. Like they're gonna pour money into these things.
the thing with like the sports games in particular is that like that's not like they're reliant on a different IP or the actual sport that they're kind of the video game version of, where League, Fortnite, whatever game is their own IP. It's
Yeah,
like
they
their
own that
own
as well.
thing. So
Mhm.
like when you think FIFA, you also think actual FIFA, like actual football or soccer, whatever you want to call it. But when you think like LCS, you do think League. It's like so there's like that weird kind of juxtaposition where um, like the sporting games community is like kind of separate. None of like you don't really think about it like at all when you think about like esports. At least in the for the tier one esports, like you don't really think about it. Like you hear about like you might include fighting games because like that's their own thing. It's like its own genre. But like I feel like the sport games are on their own island even more so.
Yeah, I mean like the like FIFA in particular gets a lot of gets a lot of support from the organization itself. Like they get money and they do tournaments like to promote their IP because it generates a lot of interest for real life soccer as well. So like they're probably like I'm thinking about like solo play games as esports. Those are probably some of the largest prize pools out there, and it's because of the backing, right? Like why are team sports prize pools so much larger with the exception of like Fortnite where they have both, right?
Because
Like they have solos and
Well, you also have to deal with having multiple people to accommodate for when
Mhm.
you're winning, so it's not like you're only giving the prize to one person. If you have like a team of 4 and you have to split that by 4,
Yeah.
so the prize pool just inherently has to
Yeah,
be
the uptake of
bigger.
infrastructure is just like
Mhm.
you're not gonna put like a measly prize pool up for like
yeah, but it also
orgs. Like
has
there's
to
no
have an
reason for these
ROI.
orgs to exist if there's not enough money for it to support a
Mhm.
team.
No,
So
I understand that, but at the same time, like there needs to be an ROI on that money, right? You can't just be pouring that kind of money out. So, dude, are team sports more viewed than like solo sports, or is the marketing just better? Like, what is it about the team sports that draws such a larger audience, right?
I think it's just the inherent nature of team sports. You have the different personalities interacting with each other, the storylines, like Steve said before. It just creates for a better overall spectatorship and experience
and you
in
just won't, we're
general.
just like accustomed to it from traditional sports. You're just like used to
Mhm.
rooting for a team. There's obviously certain players that like you'll attach to, but like at least in the West, like what single person sports are like
Tiger
popular?
Woods, baby, Tiger Woods. No, like I was just thinking like golf is really the only thing, or like tennis, right? Like that
Hmm.
there are like sports. It's just like people like even in actual sports, I feel like the individual sports are not as ubiquitous as like team sports, like football, basketball, baseball. Like they're
Mhm.
huge. They're huge compared to what like
I
golf
think
is.
it's just the more impressiveness of the feat of having to get 5 people coordinated on a basketball court working together as a cohesive unit. Same thing with esports. You have a team of 4 in squads in Fortnite or a team of 6 in Overwatch. Just the difficulty of trying to take all those cogs and put them in the same machine and just have it flow without any issues. And it's impressive when it's pulled off, as opposed to you're just a freak like Shroud and just like you just frag out and destroy everyone. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
that's
think I think
cool,
the
but
yeah, I think the social nature of people as well is just like kind of connect easier with like, oh, all those people came together and they did this thing where it's like a little easier to empathize, like being like, okay, maybe if I was part of a team like that, I could do that. Where it's just like, man, I could never just crank whatever like a freak of nature like that, or just like the amount of like hours and skill hours they put into being able to be that good on an individual level. It's just harder to be like harder to relate to.
yeah, and
But
the
let's move.
replicable.
Let's go full
Uh,
on to the teams. The advantages of being on a team, as well as the disadvantages. So, like you were just saying, like the coordination is like just a total double-edged sword where you need to be able to communicate with a group of people, which one for esports can be difficult with people that are less experienced, but at the same time, probably a lot of their social, like that's a lot of the reason people get into gaming is the social
mhm.
aspect of connecting with a bunch of people who are into the same thing you are. But then there's the clash of personalities that's like a whole new talent that requires like coaches and managers to maintain a balanced like environment that keep people from going off the deep end and exploding the team from within.
Yeah, I think there is a fine line between managing all of those things, because just that whole process of like having coaches, managers, PR, all that stuff that comes with being on a team is just a disadvantage in its own right. You have these external factors that you have to constantly be thinking about, and how you can in turn be affected by these things. You may not have it in the forefront, but in the back of your head, yeah, like, oh man, if I say this, this will affect not only me, but like all these people and then like, oh, if I choke, I'm not only affecting me, but I'm affecting letting down like my coach, my manager, all the fans. So you do have those added pressures, but at the same time, you have the ability to overcome a lot more if you're put in a shit situation. In a solo situation, it's like either you hit the shot or you lose. When you have teammates, you can hit the shot or you can coordinate with your boy and pull off something crazy. And I think that's just the glory of team esports as a whole, just that clutch factor with your boys. But it does have a lot more disadvantages in my eyes as compared to solo play, unfortunately, because I do love watching team esports unfold.
I don't know, man. I feel like I definitely see what you're saying, but
Mhm.
at a certain level, right? You can fall back on your team, right?
Mhm.
A lot of people are either fills or like organizations have like a lot of different parts that they can swap in and out as they grow. Like when
Mhm.
you look at like well, maybe not as much Overwatch league anymore. Like now with their with their band picks, like you can it kind of switches it up a little bit, and it's interesting to see like if they're gonna hire like one tricks like to fill
Mhm.
out like for like
Yeah,
some weeks they're like
specialists.
yeah exactly. So like you have a lot more flexibility in like your team management, and then too for the fans, right? You have that kind of gonna be weird to say this, but like you have that boy band effect, right? Where like you'll fill your team with personalities that people can latch onto. So like it grows as a brand even without like even if the players do change over time, right? Like you'll
Yeah.
get that team loyalty that you're not going to be able to get with a single individual.
Yeah. With that, you also run the risk of having the inverse effect with like you said, the quote unquote boy band. Like now everyone who wants to be what's his name? Who wants to be Justin Bieber, not there can only be one Justin Bieber, and you have that clash of trying to
I mean, that's been
show
forever, right? Everybody was trying
yeah.
to be Justin Timberlake, like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, like
It
and
was
the whole thing is too like that comes down to management. And like that's why
Uh-huh.
you have these organizations that have professionals doing this kind of thing. And I don't think you were going to see it that much in esports. Like there are those outlier like strong personalities that are difficult to work with. And I mean that's in every situation, not even just in esports but in life in general, right? It's
Mhm.
Yeah, well, it was funny with Overwatch League the first season. Like Jonak was like popping off on Zen, and there was a thing going around called like Jonak syndrome, where a lot of team Zenyatta players were just trying to pull off crazy plays and just getting shut
Yeah,
down
because they
They
like
and just
they would
they
beating.
demand the
compete
same
with it.
resource. It's like, why aren't you guys playing around me like they play around Jonak? Well, you're not as good as him, so sit
like you're
down.
not as good. You're not as good. Sit down. But then like too, like you look at how people that example is perfect. You have people that build their personal brands within their teams, right? Like look at that Chipsa fucking sitting on the sidelines talking a lot of shit, but like he doesn't really play, but he's part of the team, and like his whatever you think about the kid, right? His personal brand brings a lot of eyes to his team too.
I mean,
Mhm.
he's
You know,
more well known than like most of that roster. Just like
exactly, and like that's why they keep him on the bench, right? He has a lot of earned media, but it's
Well,
just interesting
according
to
to
see
him,
that.
it's because the competition isn't ready.
yeah,
So,
Yeah, yeah, Eddie
undefeated.
man, but
but
well, like I don't know, like everything that we were saying before too, like you got to be concerned about like what you say. I think that as the esport industry grows, right, they're gonna realize that like individuals can stand out, and they're gonna they're like you're gonna have your Justin Timberlakes or your stars, right? That like can
mhm.
go solo, but like the the loyalty to the team is what you're trying to build. And I think that like it's gonna give a lot of players individually a lot of leeway to be their own people
Yeah,
within the team, but like
it,
it will
it
still add to that team loyalty.
yeah, it super sucks that COVID had to happen because I feel like this year, 2020, for esports as a whole was just with all the like live spectator experiences. I feel like it was just like setting up to build those sports parallels where you have like championships and then like team bonds being made. I feel like just esports was heading in that direction and everything was coming together and then like
I don't know about
Yeah, more
that.
branch.
I
fan
mean,
interaction.
yeah, in thinking optimistically, yes, but like there's still a lot of issues. Like COVID has like exposed a lot of issues within each esports like scene, and if like a lot of people are criticizing OWL for rushing to go to like local like the homestand model where everyone's traveling like an actual professional sports team. I feel like this is
Except
actually,
globally.
yeah, globally. This is in a way a saving grace for a lot of top tier esports. Like things are getting addressed or being exposed, so like they have to be addressed. And then like I think next year or maybe like 2022 is like will be like when the culmination of like all these years of just like grinding out on like local small tournaments or online or what have you. I think that's like when esports is really gonna break like get to the next step for like live events and just that nature.
Yeah, well, at least with Al, like it was a bit of a too much of a good thing that like that amount of travel is not sustainable for players, and just the you'd probably have even more people dropping out, and
Hmm.
just like a lower level of play in general. But but
I mean, Siege was
this
like getting delayed for their Las Vegas thing, and there's still a ton of issues with that game, the state of the game right now. So it's like pros were dropping that, unhappy with it. So um, I think just delaying all that and just like getting the games themselves in a good spot is what's gonna help these like team esports.
Yeah, I think they're gonna need to take a step back and think of a more practical approach for for how to have like these big live performances are great, but like Overwatch League, you're not gonna fill out that every time. But this is a different topic. Back to just like the aspect of being a team. It's like, what do you guys think about how varying skill levels can affect kind of like the lead singer of Boyband Effect we were talking about, but like I find it interesting how like some teams can be like greater than the sum of their parts, really, like just like their coordination and just like experience from like continuing to play together can kind of bring out them better as a whole than they'd ever be individually, and then maybe they get traded around afterwards at some point and it's like, wow, they never really lived up to it. And then you also have the other side where it's just like one player, no matter how good they are, they're not going to be able to carry the game. So that's gonna like kind of drive them to either to one go crazy themselves and to be like reflected poorly and from the fans, like, wow, this guy was overhyped, but it's really not his fault. He's doing everything he can. He's just, it doesn't have the supporting players he needs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's just a part of the double-edged sword that is unfortunately team games. You have to deal with these players who are less than lackluster, but they're good enough to compete at the highest level. But then you have some freak on the enemy team who's just like, it's not even fair going up against this kid, and you can't, nothing you can really do about it besides like try and play better as a team. But then it's just one of those things that's going to happen in team games, and we talked about it off camera before, but it's just like unlucky. They do have the same risk. They have 6 people on their team as well, if we're using Overwatch as an example. So it's not like they're a perfect unit either, so you
Yeah.
can try
I
and
do wonder
exploit.
how much it comes down to like actual personality clashing versus like
Mhm.
play style, and like I love like the thought process of like a GM putting together a team. It's like how it feels like such guesswork. Like
Yeah,
how are you
yeah,
gonna know without a lot of trialing if they're gonna actually perform together?
and
yeah.
that
It's hard too. Like this is such a new thing too. Like there's not a lot of like even the esports themselves are trying to establish like best practices. It's almost impossible to build like to plan out a team anymore, right? Like
mhm.
like I'm like too like we were talking about like players that like might be good on their own but maybe not meld with the team. Like you look at Simple, right? Like from CS:GO, like Simple's arguably the best player that has ever played. Yet he's maybe won one championship recently, like over years of play being the best, right? And he just couldn't back it up for like so long, and it affects your brand, right? Like if
Yeah,
you don't
that's
win your championships, right, you're not people are going to see you as the best, but like also he reportedly is impossible to work with, and it's hard to be a cohesive team. And they were bringing in like anger management coaches and shit just to get to get like, and like you see that too, like with like other esports as well, where they're bringing in psychologists just to try to get that cohesion down so that they can play at a top level. Like you see so
Yeah,
many.
they were.
Go ahead.
Sorry, but they just made think they were talking about on the. I think it's the Essential Esports podcast. They were talking about how there isn't really any like low level, like, like with sports there's like, you play in high school and middle school and growing up, and you kind of learn to be coached and like work as a team, but there's no that entry level stuff like for competitive video games, because most of them kind of joined around high school age anyway, and they just aren't like mentally
Yeah.
and emotionally like
They're just
mature
grinding
enough
away
to
in
be
their
part of that team.
bedroom and then get
Yeah,
thrown into a team environment.
these greasy teenagers that they're pulling out to it's a problem with the industry as a whole, right? Like, so like you look at even like the esports that skew even younger than that, like Fortnite. Like these kids are like 12 to 18 years old that are dominant in the pro scene.
They're
right?
reckless.
What?
They're reckless. Like,
Yeah. I mean, like that. I wouldn't even say reckless, and they're kind of hands off with their esport as well. So like it's not, it doesn't exactly foster the best environment. But like what Steve is saying, like he's 100% right. These kids are not, they're young, and then they've never really had. It's not like they were playing sports. Like they never had that kind of that coaching
It
mentality.
wouldn't be there if they were.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
interesting
exactly.
because after the end of the solo FNCS, they announced another season of solos for season 3, and then season 4 is going to be trios. But they enabled like trios arena mode for pros to start doing trio scrims in practice, and now Fortnite's in this phase where everyone's trying to find teammates and they're trying out teammates, and it's just interesting to see how these pro players go about picking out teams, because it's not really on hand by orgs. It's like
Yeah,
you
there's
go
no.
out, you make your trio, and you compete. That's it. It's
Yeah,
up
it's
to you.
Just a
interesting to
rush to
see
make the most busted
organically.
Yeah.
squad.
Yeah, but like even like some people, they're like talking about it and they're like, oh, why don't you? So they were talking to Unknown and they're like, why don't you Clicks and this other guy Seam team up and just win? You guys are all really good at just getting kills and you'll just win on kill points alone. And like it's more than just putting 3 of the best players, because like you have that personality clash. Like Unknown doesn't like Clicks, and like can't you just put that aside and just do it for
nope.
the win? But like
No, that beef
to some
lasts
people,
forever.
yeah,
That
to some
dance
people
will
you
be in
can't
his
just do
mind for
that. So
all time.
it really that a mindset of just like put the 3 best solo players together and they'll
Like,
win.
you can't do that because my
You
whole
can't-
motivation for winning is to beat him. I don't want to.
Yeah,
It
like,
takes out the
exactly.
whole joy of it.
And then what
Yeah.
if he outperforms me? And it's like, oh, well, yeah,
Yeah, then you have to
Unknown
do that.
carrying Click, so.
Yeah.
It's like super interesting to see because they'll have like people play a couple scrims with them, and then you'll either see them on the stream the next day or nope. It's like didn't
Yeah, I
work out.
think battle royale is a super interesting genre because you get to see both sides of it, where it does seem like it's more just because of the players seem more inclined to be individual,
Mhm.
and you do have solos, but then it's like, okay, now you need to figure out how to work as a team all of a sudden, when all you need to do before was like tunnel in and just be a complete like a Fortnite robot, but now you need to be able to communicate and like
Watching like
can't
the
solo carry.
Apex season series, it's just like, because their scene is always trios, so it's always team based. It has that like interperson play of like personalities, call outs, just working together. But maybe it's also the fact that like the Apex players tend to be older than the Fortnite players. Yeah, like if you turn into like one of their streams, like these kids are raging at each other sometimes, but like once they get back into the spawn room and like the game's over, like they'll cool down usually. But and they're like, all right, yeah, oh no, you were right. Like this is why this has happened. Oh, maybe I should have done this. Like they'll actually kind of like take a step back instead of just being at each other's throat the whole time. And the fact that with Apex, the teams are always going to be like a team. Like I mean, like it's not crossed orgs. Like there's not like the team isn't made up of like a TSM player and NRG player and like some random
You're
third
stuck
party
with these
org.
guys.
Like Fortnite's kind of an oddity because Unknowns on NRG, Clicks is on Misfits, I believe, and then like people are just like mismatching like in
Yeah,
that sense as well.
there's not that like
There's no
org or team
gatekeeping.
loyalty. Yeah, it's
There's no
just like you find
gatekeeping, and
who
they
you
have
want
like
to
a
play with and you play with them.
yeah, they have no gatekeeping in Fortnite. I think that's why it's one of the more interesting esports to watch. They have like a Kid Nation type deal going on where they're just like, "Yo, 12-year-olds,
I mean,
figure
but
it
the
out."
gatekeeping is like not. Oh, at least in Apex, like they're not keeping random kids out. Like if you qualify through opens, you're in the tournament. It's just like the teams aren't being cross pollinated from different orgs.
Yeah, I think that it's just with that type of thing, they don't grow their personal brands as much. So like you're not gonna like they're like I think that the Fortnite brand of esport really promotes individual play or like individual stars, right? And then eventually once they shake out the real like stars within their platform, then it will be more profitable for orgs to come in and actually pick up these kids. I think that's what you're seeing is like a longer term plan for an esport versus like, oh, these are the best kids right now. We're going to get them into however many year contracts, lose a shit ton of money, and then sink my esport in the process. You know, like you see it with a lot of things what was that kid's name that got like a $2 million contract from
Oh,
oh my god.
Dignitas and Huni.
Yeah, Dignitas paying out $2 million for that kid, and then like he didn't even want to play with them. You know, they were like, "Yeah, go find somebody else. Good luck finding somebody to buy out your contract from us." You know, so
Yeah.
the kid's sitting there, probably gonna get half half that contract, so he's gonna get a cool mill for doing nothing because the team can't. There's no cohesion, right? Like there's so much like with the gatekeeping of organizations where I like the Fortnite model way better because you can kind of shake out to see like, okay, maybe we can build a team around these kids, keep it loose, and then like there's not as much money in it involved, and then you can put more into like development of brands.
Yeah,
I
and
think that
just like oh, sorry to cut you
no,
off,
you're
but
good.
just tying everything together, I follow the Fortnite competitive Reddit a lot, and like a lot of kids ask for what's the best way to get a team, and the pro players will come in and they'll say the best way to get a team is be good at solos. They say use your solo experience to get that recognition, and then once you have that, people want to be on your team. Like everyone's talking about right now. Oh, who's Furious going to be on a team with? Furious should team with Unknown and Clicks, and they'll just be the W key team. Like you get, I feel like Fortnite does a good job um, catering its players or grooming its players to go from that. All right, so you do good in a solo environment, you become known, and then like people want you on your team, and now you have to learn the team version of the game. But you can't get
Yeah, I
there
really like the
unless.
fluidity of it.
Uh,
I like the fluidity of the Fortnite in general, and I think it makes for more interesting kind of
mhm,
storylines and news like around their organization. It's like, wow,
mhm,
you can get a whole news cycle of just like, oh man, who is this person going to team with? Who's this person going to team with? And it just like kind of makes its own storylines within that way,
mhm.
rather than just a cookie cutter. Okay, this is this team.
Yeah,
He has to
like
play with him because it's his org, you know. So
yeah, like using a couple seasons ago as an example, EU players, Mr. Savage and Benji, they were duo mates. They split up. Benji went to go play with Mongrel and Mitro, and Mr. Savage was left without a team. He had to find other players, and there was like this whole drama about how Benji left Mr. Savage, and now they're compared. And whenever there's a solo event, who's the better of the duo, Benji or Mr. Savage? And now we're going back to trios,
yeah,
and
get the Gossip Girls going, dude.
Benji and Savage are back together. They're playing with Lecce, and it's like, oh man, are Benji and Savage good enough now? Do they
Yeah,
still got it?
Yeah,
I
TMZ
love
over
the
here. My God.
but like dude that's what sells, man.
Hmm.
Like there's actually something interesting like all these people actually like it allows their personalities to shine through that I feel like a lot of organizations kind of whitewash out like we were saying before. Like you're afraid of how you reflect on your organization and it kind of like until the organization's kind of loosen the reins on it, you're not going to see as many like fan favorites or like that lead singer thing that I feel like the esports genre really needs.
Mhm. Yeah, it would be
Yeah.
interesting to see if
So,
yeah, just one last thing. It would be interesting to see if like orgs would be interested in like doing some kind of split team, like combining with another org, saying like we'll go half on this team and we'll get like 2 players from my org, 2 players from your org, see how it goes. That probably would never happen because they want all the brand identity to themselves, but it would be interesting.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to the format of how the competitions are held in the first place, and
Mhm.
because the Fortnite format is so open, it allows for this stuff. But just to like as a final topic, like what would you say is more impressive? Someone that wins a championship in a solo game, or someone that pulls it off, or a team that pulls it off
I'll say
briefly?
someone who wins a solo game. Just
You
on
think
the
so?
sheer,
Even though they're
yeah.
just grinding it out just to be the best
Yeah,
as
I
an
mean,
individual.
you still gotta give it to him. That kid just dominated how many other people are playing the game. You know, you're number one.
It's true.
Put himself on his own back.
Put himself in his own backpack, carried.
Yeah, you're carrying yourself like that. I like the kind of the romance of that. It's like, yo, what, one against the world, you know? But at
Mhm.
the same time, I think in practice, I think it's way harder to be consistent as a team, and like it's way more impressive to me that if a team wins tournament after tournament, back to back to back, you know, that just proves not only are those kids individually good, but their team cohesion is impressive, and it's just hard. You know, you don't really see that a lot.
Or is just every other team's cohesion not that good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Because
mean,
it's
hey, if
just a
you're
whole
beating
different
out
scale.
everybody else, you know,
Yeah.
it's all relative to the space that you're operating in, right? So, I mean,
Yeah.
all this has caveats, but I think that the team thing is a lot more impressive
I do.
in long.
Jake.
I do as well. Well, mainly because yeah, just like it's just a bigger balancing act. It's just like, can these guys pull? Can everyone show up on this given day, perform consistently, not till get along, stuff like that. I just maybe just coming from watching hockey all the time, just like like hearing drama like off on the sidelines and shit. I guess I'm just like more invested in like the team aspect, but I do love watching. Well, I think it was the MK Leo losers bracket run back at Frostbite, like stuff like that. That's incredible, but I don't know, just seeing like two teams compete at the highest level and just like going at it, I think that's like the most entertaining thing to watch.
Yeah, I think it is definitely admirable to like just have someone that's so amazingly skilled that just like blows you away. But you still have that in a team game. But I think what makes it even more impressive in like games like Overwatch, where it's like that person can be the best in the world, and their team can still not win because it isn't
Oh
enough.
yeah.
Like you need that something extra.
I feel like there's
And
more
I
upset
think
potential in team games.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think it happens a lot where it's like you have a best player in the world, where like MKLeo, because it's just like no one can beat him
You
because
do,
he's so good
hmm
individually, and all you have is your own what you have as an individual
yeah,
to
like
beat him,
like
and
for
you don't.
those cases, I feel like the times he loses for the most part are either like a completely unknown person comes out of nowhere, or there's certain patches in the game that just like make his play style not the most viable, so he has to adapt. Like I feel like if it's
Or
just like so like without those, I
I
feel
was
like
just gonna say, or he's online.
or he's online,
He's-
yeah. So that's something like something outside of his control. Um, I feel like that's when like the best in each person's regarded game is like most vulnerable. So with the team sports, I feel like there's more like back and forth. So
Yeah, I'd have to go for teams as well, just because you can just because you put a bunch of superstars on a team doesn't mean they're going to be the best, but it's like you level up everything or every one of you individually to kind of
mhm.
everything has the stars have to align for you to actually be the best team, and it just feels like such a more difficult accomplishment, even though you know it's all
And you kind of want to
it's
root
all
against
hard.
them too. Like you're waiting for the day when they just get the shit beat out of them by some bunch of randoms put together and that grinded it out. So
hmm All right. I think we've been
yeah,
rambling long enough. You
yeah. With that being said,
want to take us out?
we're the Infamy Fantasy Esports team. We host fantasy esports tournaments on our website, infamy.gg. Check it out. And let us know, what do you think is more impressive, being an individualistic esports player or a team-based player? What's more impressive? And let us know what you think we should do for the next video topic as well in the
Put
comment
it in the
section.
comments.
Yeah, put it in the comments. All right, have a good one, guys. Talk to you later.